Hello, Morgan here, and we are going to go over the Life and Ministry Meeting Workbook for September 18th through 24th. I meant to do this earlier in the week, but the day that I went to my meeting on Wednesday, my house was broken into, so I have not been able to record till now. This is going to be the first Life and Ministry meeting that I've done on recording, so I'm not sure how we're going to do this. Kind of like the Sunday one, I'm going to try this way of reading it and then asking the questions, and if we're comfortable with that, I'll stick to it. Okay, so the Bible chapters for this week's 18th through 24th are Daniel 1 through 3. And that's why I waited till the middle of the month so we could start a fresh book together. We're going to start with Treasures from God's Word. Loyalty to Jehovah brings rewards. Now, this would be a talk, but it has the scriptures to back it up, so I would read the scriptures to you. And the question. Alright, according to the following scriptures, what does loyalty to Jehovah involve? Matthew 24:14. This good news of the kingdom will be preached in all the inhabited earth for a witness to all the nations, and then the end will come. John 17:16. They are no part of the world, just as I am no part of the world. And 1 Corinthians 6:9 through 10. Or do you not know that unrighteous people will not inherit God's kingdom? Do not be misled. Those who are sexually immoral, idolaters, adulterers, men who submit to homosexual acts, men who practice homosexuality, thieves, greedy people, drunkards, revilers, and extortioners will not inherit God's kingdom. Okay. Now we would go on to scriptures and questions with Watchtower paragraphs to explain them. So I will read the, not question, but statement, and then I'll read the scripture. Daniel's companions withstood the intense pressure to be disloyal to Jehovah. Okay, and that's found in Daniel 3:16 through 20. Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego answered to the king, O Nebuchadnezzar, we have no need to answer you in this matter. If it must be, our God whom we serve is able to rescue us from the burning fiery furnace, O king, and to rescue us from your hand. But even if he does not, let it be known to you, O king, that we will not serve your gods or worship the image of gold that you have set up. Then Nebuchadnezzar became so furious with Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego that the expression of his face changed toward them, and he gave orders to heat the furnace 7 times hotter than usual. He ordered some of the mighty men from his army to bind Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego, and to throw them into the burning fiery furnace. And then there's a watchtower for reading. Watchtower, July 15, 2015. Sooner or later, all of Jehovah's servants will find themselves in situations where their conscience obliges them to stand out as different from those around them, whether colleagues, classmates, neighbors, relatives, or others. Yet stand out we must. We should not be surprised if the world hates us for our stand. Jesus warned us that it would. Most opposers do not appreciate the importance of the issues involved in Christian neutrality. For us, though, those are matters of utmost importance. Loyalty to Jehovah requires that we be steadfast in the face of threats. Fear of man can affect people of all ages, but young people may find it especially difficult to go against the flow, so to speak. If your children are facing such issues as flag salute or nationalistic celebrations, do not hesitate to assist them. Use family worship sessions to help your children understand the issues involved so they can meet those challenges courageously. help them to express their personal convictions clearly and respectfully. To back up your children, take the initiative to speak with their teachers about these matters if necessary. Okay, and I need to let my cat out of the room. Alright. Next is, their loyalty resulted in praise to Jehovah and blessings to them. And that will be found in Daniel chapter 3, 26 through 29. Nebuchadnezzar approached the door of the burning fiery furnace and said, Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego, you servants of the Most High God, step out and come here. Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego stepped out from the midst of the fire. And the satraps, prefects, and governors, and the high officials of the king who were assembled there, saw that the fire had no effect on the bodies of these men. Not a hair of their heads had been singed, their cloaks looked no different, and there was not even a smell of fire on them. Nebuchadnezzar then declared, Praise be the God of Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego, who sent his angel and rescued his servants. They trusted in him and went against the command of the king, and were willing to die rather than serve or worship any god except their own God. I am therefore issuing an order that any people, nation, or language group that says anything against the God of Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego should be dismembered, and their houses should be turned into public latrines. For there is no other God who is able to rescue like this one. And the Watchtower, January 15, 2013. In the 17th century BCE, 3 Hebrew servants of Jehovah were given clear evidence that God rewards faith and courage. King Nebuchadnezzar assembled Babylon's dignitaries and demanded that they worship a towering image of gold. Any who would not do so were to die in a fiery furnace. The 3 Hebrews respectfully told Nebuchadnezzar, Our God whom we are serving is able to rescue us out of the burning fiery furnace, and out of your hand, O king, he will rescue us. But if not, let it become known to you, O king, that your gods are not the ones we are serving, and the image of gold that you have set up we will not worship. The thrilling rescue of the 3 Hebrews is vividly described in Daniel 3:19 through 30. Although we are not likely to be threatened with death in a fiery furnace, we do face tests of integrity and can be sure that God will bless us for our faith and courage. Okay, and we're on to the next part of meeting, digging for spiritual gems. Now this one, I will read a scripture and then ask a question. Daniel 1, verse 5. Furthermore, the king assigned them to daily ration from the king's delicacies and from the wine he drank, and they were to be trained for 3 years, and at the end of that time they were to enter the king's service. And then there will be a book here called The Insight. There are 3 probable reasons why they considered the king's delicacies polluting. 1. The Babylonians ate animals declared unclean by the Mosaic law. 2. They would not be careful to see that the animals were properly bled, some perhaps being strangled. 3. The pagans often first sacrificed the animals to their gods, considering the eating of such meat as a part of the worship to these gods. And it says to compare Daniel 1, verse 8, and 1 Corinthians 10, 18 through 20 and 28. Okay, 1:8. But Daniel resolved in his heart that he would not defile himself with the king's delicacies or with the wine he drank. So he asked the principal court official for permission to not defile himself in that way. And then 1 Corinthians 10, 18 through 20 and 28. Look at Israel in the fleshly sense. Are not those who eat the sacrifices sharers with the altar? What then am I saying? That the sacrifice to an idol is anything, or that an idol is anything? No. But what I say is that what the nations sacrifice, they sacrifice to demons and not to God. And I do not want you to become sharers with the demons. And 28. But if anyone says to you, this is something offered in sacrifice, do not eat because of the one who told you and because of the conscience. Okay, and so the question is, why did Daniel and his 3 companions conclude that eating of the king's delicacies would defile them? Okay, the next question has Daniel chapter 2 and verse 44. In the days of those kings, the God of heaven will set up a kingdom that will never be destroyed, and this kingdom will not be passed on to any other people. It will crush and put an end to all these kingdoms, and it alone will stand forever. And then we have 2 magazines, it looked like. The prophecy at Daniel 2:44 states that God's kingdom will crush and put an end to all these kingdoms. That prophecy refers only to the kingdoms pictured by the various parts of the image. What about other human governments? The parallel prophecy in Revelation reveals the larger picture. It shows the kings of the entire inhabited earth will be gathered against Jehovah on the great day of God Almighty. Hence, not only the kingdoms of the image, but also other human governments will be destroyed at Armageddon. And then, October 15th, 2001, the answer is found at Daniel 2:44. In the days of those kings ruling at the end of the present system, the God of heaven will set up a kingdom that will never be brought to ruin, and the kingdom itself will not be passed on to any other people. It will crush and put an end to all these man-made kingdoms, and it itself will stand at times indefinite. Why will God's kingdom have to crush earthly rulerships? Because these insist on perpetuating the God-defiling spirit of self-determination promoted by Satan back in the Garden of Eden. In addition to working against mankind's best interests, those who strive to perpetuate that spirit put themselves in a collision course with the Creator. Hence, we must ask ourselves, are we for or against rule by God? Okay, and the question is, why will God's kingdom have to crush the earthly rulerships depicted in the image? And there are 2 more questions. What has this week's Bible reading taught you about Jehovah? And what other spiritual gems have you discovered in reading this week's Bible reading? Now next we'll have a Bible reading, and it is Daniel chapter 4, 31 through 43. I will do the chapters of the Bible in a separate video, like Daniel 1, and then Daniel 2, and then Daniel 3. But I'll do the Bible reading for this meeting in just a second. I will be right back. Okay, Daniel chapter 2, 31 through 43. You, O king, were watching, and you saw an immense image. That image, which was huge and extremely bright, was standing in front of you, and its appearance was terrifying. The head of that image was of fine gold, its chest and arms were of silver, its abdomen and its thighs were of copper, its legs were of iron, and its feet were partly of iron and partly of clay. You looked on as a stone was cut out, not by hands, and it struck the image on its feet of iron and clay, and crushed them. At that time the iron, the clay, the copper, the silver, and the gold were all together crushed, and became like chaff in a summer threshing floor, and the wind carried them away, so that not a trace of them could be found. But the stone that struck the image became a large mountain, and it filled the whole earth. This is the dream, and we will now tell the king its interpretation. You, O king, king of kings, whom the God of heaven has given the kingdom, the might, the strength, and the glory, and into whose hands he has given men wherever they may dwell. as well as the beasts of the field and the birds of the heavens, and whom he has made ruler over all of them. You yourself are the head of gold. But after you, another kingdom will rise, inferior to you. Then another kingdom, a third one, of copper, it will rule over the whole earth. As for the fourth kingdom, it will be strong like iron. For just as iron crushes and pulverizes everything, yes, like iron that shatters, it will crush and shatter all of these. And just as you saw the feet and the toes be partly of clay of a potter and partly of iron, the kingdom will be divided, but some of the hardness of iron will be in it, just as you saw iron mixed with soft clay, and as the toes of the feet were partly of iron and partly of clay, so the kingdom will be partly strong and partly fragile. Just as you saw iron mixed with soft clay, it will be mixed with the people. They will not stick together, one to the other, just as iron does not mix with clay. Okay, that was the Bible reading. Next, we would have a part called Apply Yourself to the Field Ministry, and that would be the things that we do presenting at the doors in the door-to-door ministry. I may start practicing to do a presentation for each of these, but I'm not going to do it this time. The last part will be Living as Christians, and there are 2 videos for this, and I'm not going to play them, but I could start playing them. There's a video called Be Loyal When Tempted, and then a video called Be Loyal When a Relative is Disfellowshipped. And then we have the Congregation Bible Study. And I guess I'll do it in this video and not a separate video. Okay, Section 6, Kingdom Support. Building for worship and providing relief. You walk into your Kingdom Hall. You hardly recognize the place. You've always been proud of this building. You may even have happy memories of helping in its construction some years ago. But in a way, you are even prouder now, for the Kingdom Hall has been transformed temporarily into a relief center. After a recent storm brought floods and devastation to your region, the branch committee quickly organized a way for the victims of the disaster to get food, clothing, clean water, and other help. Donated relief supplies are neatly arranged. Brothers and sisters are filing in, getting what they need, and in many cases wiping tears of joy from their eyes. Jesus said the outstanding mark of his people would be their love for one another. In this section, we will consider how Christian love is being shown in the building projects and relief efforts undertaken by Jehovah's Witnesses. All such love is powerful evidence that we live under Jesus' kingdom rule. Okay? And we will read John 13:34 through 35. I am giving you a new commandment, that you love one another, just as I have loved you. You will also love one another. By this, all will know that you are my disciples, if you have love among yourselves. Okay, and now we'll get to the chapter. And I'm going to do this just like I did the magazine. It's going to be chapter 18, 1 through 8. And I'm going to have to download it, so I'm going to pause for just a minute. Okay, I had it downloaded in French and not English, so I had to download it in English so I could read it to you. How kingdom activities are financed. Focus of the chapter. Why and how Jehovah's people support the kingdom work financially. Okay, paragraph 1 and 2. On one occasion, Brother Charles T. Russell was approached by a minister of the Reformed Church who wanted to know how the activities of the Bible students were managed. We never take up a collection, explained Brother Russell. How do you get the money? Asked the minister. If I tell you what is the simplest truth, you will hardly be able to believe it, replied Russell. When people get interested in this way, they find no basket placed under their nose, but they see there are expenses. They say to themselves, "This hall costs something. How can I get a little money into this thing?" The minister looked at Brother Russell in disbelief. "I'm telling you the plain truth," continued Russell. "They do ask me this very question. How can I get a little money into this cause? When one gets a blessing and has any means, he wants to use it for the Lord. If he has no means, why should we prod him for it?" Brother Russell was indeed telling the plain truth. God's people have a long history of making voluntary contributions to support true worship. In this chapter, we will examine some spiritual examples of this, along with our modern-day history. As we consider how kingdom activities are being financed today, each of us would do well to ask, how can I show my support for the kingdom? Okay, and the questions, there are two questions. The A question is, how did Brother Russell answer a minister who wanted to know how the activities of the Bible students were managed? The B question is, what will we consider in this chapter? Alright, subheading, let everyone with a willing heart bring a contribution. Paragraphs 3 and 4. Jehovah has confidence in his true worshippers. He knows that if they are given the opportunity, they will gladly show their devotion by their voluntary giving. Consider two examples from Israel's history. After leading the Israelites out of Egypt, Jehovah told them to build a portable tent or tabernacle for worship. The structure and its furnishings would require considerable resources. Jehovah instructed Moses to give the people the opportunity to support the project, saying, "Let everyone with a willing heart bring a contribution for Jehovah." How did the people who not long before had toiled in harsh conditions in every form of slavery respond? They showed unqualified support, willingly parting with gold, silver, and other valuables, most of which they had likely obtained from their former masters, the Egyptians. The Israelites gave more than was needed and had to be restrained from bringing in anything else. Alright, we have scriptures for this. Just a second. Exodus 35:5. Take up a contribution for Jehovah from among yourselves. Let everyone with a willing heart bring up a contribution for Jehovah, gold, silver, copper. Alright. And I scrolled too far. Exodus 1:14. They made their life bitter with hard labor, as they worked with clay, mortar, and bricks in every form of slavery in the field. Yes, they made them toil in harsh conditions in every form of slavery. Exodus 12:35-36. The Israelites did what Moses had told them and asked the Egyptians for articles of silver and gold as well as clothing. Jehovah gave the people favor in the eyes of the Egyptians, so that they gave them what they asked for, and they plundered the Egyptians. And then Exodus 36:4-7. Then, after they started the holy work, all skilled workers were coming one after another, and they were telling Moses, "The people are bringing much more than what is required for the work that Jehovah has commanded to be done." So Moses commanded that announcement be made throughout the camp, saying, "Men and women, do not bring any more goods for the holy contribution." With that, the people were restrained from bringing in anything else. The goods were enough for all the work to be done, and more than enough. Okay, and the questions are A, what confidence does Jehovah have in his worshippers? And B, how did the Israelites show their support for the building of the tabernacle? Paragraph 5. Some 475 years later, David contributed out of his private treasure to finance the building of the temple, the first permanent center of true worship on earth. Then he gave his fellow Israelites the opportunity to give, asking, "Who volunteers to come forward today with a gift in hand for Jehovah?" In response, the people made voluntary offerings to Jehovah with a complete heart. Recognizing the true source of the contributions, David said in prayer to Jehovah, "Everything is from you, and we have given to you what comes from your hand." Okay, 1 Chronicles 29, 3-9. "Moreover, because my delight in the house of my God, there is also my private treasure of gold and silver that I am giving to the house of my God, in addition to all that I have prepared for the holy house, including 3,000 talents of gold from Ophir, and 7,000 talents of refined silver, for coating the walls of the houses, and the gold for the gold work, and the silver for the silver work, and for all the work to be done by the craftsmen. Now who volunteers to come forward today with a gift in their hand for Jehovah?" So the princes of the paternal houses and the princes of the tribes of Israel, the chiefs of thousands and of hundreds, and the chiefs of business for the king came forward voluntarily, and they gave the service of the house of the true God 5,000 talents of gold, and 10,000 derricks, and 10,000 talents of silver, and 18,000 talents of copper, and 100,000 talents of iron. Whoever had precious stones gave them to the treasury of the house of Jehovah, under the care of Jehiel the Gershonite. The people rejoiced over making these voluntary offerings, for they made voluntary offerings to Jehovah with a complete heart, and David the king also rejoiced greatly. And then 1 Chronicles 29:14. "And yet, who am I and who are my people that we should be in a position to make voluntary offerings like this? For everything is from you, and we have given to you what comes from your own hand." The question is, how did the Israelites respond when David gave them the opportunity to contribute to the building of the temple? Paragraph 6. Neither Moses nor David had to pressure God's people to give. Rather, the people gave with willing hearts. What about today? We are all well aware that the good work of God's kingdom is doing requires money. It takes considerable resources to publish and distribute Bibles and Bible literature, to build and maintain meeting places and branch facilities, and to provide emergency relief and aid to fellow believers in times of disaster. Therefore, important questions arise. How are the necessary funds obtained? Do the king's followers need to be prodded to give? The question for paragraph 6 is, why is money needed to carry out kingdom work today, and what questions arise? Next subheading, it will never beg nor petition men for support. Paragraphs 7-8, and these will be the last paragraphs for this study. Brother Russell and his associates refused to imitate the money-raising schemes so common in the churches of Christendom. In the second issue of the Watchtower, under the heading, "Do You Want Zion's Watchtower?" Russell stated, "Zion's Watchtower has, we believe, Jehovah for its backer, and while this is the case, it will never beg nor petition men for support. When he who says, 'All the gold and the silver of the mountains are mine,' fails to provide necessary funds, we will understand it to be time to suspend the publication." Over 130 years later, the Watchtower and the organization that publishes it are still going. Haggai 2:7-9. "And I will shake all the nations, and the precious things of all the nations will come in, and I will fill this house with glory, says Jehovah of armies. The silver is mine, and gold is mine, declares Jehovah of armies. The future glory of this house will be greater than the former, says Jehovah of armies, and in its place I will grant peace, declares Jehovah of armies." Oh, I forgot to read verse 8, so I'm going to read verse 8 now. Jehovah's people do not beg for money. They do not pass collection plates or send out letters of solicitation. Neither do they use bingo, bazaars, or raffles to raise money. They hold to what the Watchtower long ago said, "We have never considered it proper to solicit money for the Lord's cause, after the common custom. It is our judgment that money raised for these various begging devices in the name of our Lord is offensive, unacceptable to him, and does not bring his blessing either upon the givers or the work that is accomplished." Okay, so the question for 7 and 8 is, why do Jehovah's people not beg or petition others for money? Alright, that is the end of this study. Thank you so much for studying with me, and I will see you next time. Bye-bye.